Well, hi, I'm Laura and welcome to the channel. Well, today I thought we could talk about reconnecting. You know, as women, we make friends, we meet people, they become friendly acquaintances, maybe a special neighbor that lives down the street, but somehow, for some reason, most oftentimes completely out of our control, the relationship changes. We drift apart. Next thing you know, we aren't friends with that person anymore. We no longer have a relationship with them. We no longer talk to them or see them. We certainly don't do anything with them anymore. And relationships, especially friendships, change for a variety of reasons. You know, we move away, we move on, our children grow up, the things that held us together, the things that we had in common, the things we thought would make us friends forever just don't stand up to the test of time. And if you're like me, there are always a couple of people in your past that float into your memory from time to time. Women that you knew all along the way, and you wonder what happened to them and hope they're doing well, but you have a little bit of fear, if not a feeling of insecurity, that if you reach out to them, they either won't remember who you were, or they won't respond, or they'll be like, why are you bothering me? And all those things that go through our heads because, of course, we're always judging, right? We're always prejudging, we're overthinking. And so I think there are often people that we miss out on relationships with because too much time has gone by, and we justify that passage of time by saying, oh, well, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want the disappointment if they reject me. And as we get older and are quite naturally losing friends, right? Friends passing away, friends moving away to retire, you know, we're losing friends anyway. Our circle is shrinking. Why hold ourselves back? Why limit ourselves? Why not reach out to that person who you used to be so close to, used to be so friendly with, someone who you thought, you know, someday I'd like to get to know them better. But time and circumstance just allowed you to float away. Well, I was at a wedding last weekend, and I thought this was a perfect topic of conversation because I was at the wedding of one of my college roommate's daughters. It's kind of a tongue twister. So I wanted to share the story of how come I was at that wedding. And it wasn't an easy journey, but it was so fulfilling. It was filled with a little bit of fear and trepidation, but I thought there was a lesson to be learned from it. Sometimes we just have to suck up our feelings, stop overthinking, and give it a whirl, right? What's the worst thing that can happen is you're disappointed again because that person doesn't want a friendship with you. But okay, you went through that years ago. You understand what it feels like to lose that person as a friend. And so what's the worst thing that can happen is they still don't want to be your friend. They're happier that you're not in their life. But I don't think that's the case. And yes, I will say it could be somebody who you didn't part with 100% amicably. I mean, sometimes there are hard and hurt feelings when a friendship ends. It's just the natural circle of life, right? Sometimes one person is hurt. Sometimes the other person doesn't understand. Sometimes you're irritated. You could even be angry. But now 20 years have gone by, 30 years have gone by, maybe even 40 years have gone by. What do you have to lose? And I'm not talking about stalking people on Facebook. I'm talking about reaching out to them and reconnecting. So I was at a wedding. My husband and I flew to Brooklyn, New York this past weekend for my college roommate's daughter's wedding. And it's funny because my college roommate, there were three of us. We were kind of besties in college, roommates for a couple of years. We went to college in Virginia, but we, the three of us, lived on the East Coast, all around the Pennsylvania area, Philadelphia. One friend lived in New Jersey. So we bonded in college over kind of our, East Coast shared experiences. Our parents all kind of lived within a 30, 40-mile radius of each other. And we spent 4 years of college together, doing everything, sharing everything. Honestly, I would have thought we would have been friends forever, but it didn't quite work out that way. Now, there was no falling out, but we went to college in the late 70s. Graduated from college in 1979, and we had the group, the three of us, and then a little bit of a wider group of friends and pals that we hung out with in college. But after graduation, everyone pretty much scattered all over the United States back to where they were from. And my two roommates went back to the Philadelphia area where their families were living and got jobs and went to work. And I, on the other hand, got a job. I was hired by a hotel company and went to work in Dayton, Ohio at their hotel, and then went on to Cincinnati, and eventually got transferred back to the Philadelphia area, Valley Forge, and was there for about a year and a half. Now, we had only been out of college for a couple of years, so this is 79 to, 79 to the 84 or so. We stayed in pretty good contact. Remember, this was before social media. We didn't have computers or laptops at home. We couldn't email each other. The way we stayed in touch was writing letters and maybe a once-a-month phone call. Of course, I would see them when I came back into town for Thanksgiving and for Christmas. I stayed at my parents' house and we would always get together. But back then, a long-distance telephone call, I think I remember it was like $5 for the first 3 minutes. And so you had to really like somebody because that was a lot of money then. It's a lot of money now, but it's a lot of money then to talk for 3 minutes on the telephone. And what two girls talk for 3 minutes on the phone? But we really didn't have any other way to keep in touch. We did some, like I said, we saw each other over the holidays. We did some vacations together. And then one by one, we each got married. And then life kind of took on its own path. And we met new friends in our new neighborhoods that we moved into. We started to have children. And I would say for the first 10 years out of college, we did a pretty good job considering the limitations of communication. We did a pretty good job of staying in touch. But I married, my first husband was in the military, in the Air Force, and so we ended up, I moved to New York and then on to California. Eventually, from California, we moved to Alaska. And I allowed my friendship I let it go. We still exchange Christmas cards, but, along the way, there was, I think, a 20-year-old me looked at it in the early 30s as a bit of a disappointment because they remained very close. They lived in the same area. I was the one that went away, but yet I felt like they moved on without me. And I was always, we talked about in our last video about being the initiator. I was always the initiator. And when I stopped initiating, calling, writing, I really stopped hearing from them. And they were great friends. They were special women. Honestly, I thought would be in my life forever. But over the years, it just got easier and easier, especially, being in the military and you kind of have your own military family, and living in Alaska, we seemed like we were in another country. And the military became our family. We didn't see our parents as often. They would fly out to see us once a year. We would fly home maybe once a year. But I I know looking back now that I let my friendship with those two college roommates completely go. And fast forward to, I'm 60 years old. So 2018, now I got my first Facebook page in 2007. I went back and looked. 2007, beginning of 2008. And I do remember looking them up on Facebook to see if I could find them, and I couldn't find them. They didn't even have Facebook pages. A Facebook page back then, I've now found out. So I go upon my life, right? I don't know that I'll ever see them again. I didn't think about, I guess you could have stalked them on LinkedIn or, anyway, other social sites, but I didn't do that. It was the beginning of social media. I don't even know that I knew how to do that. But right about a year before COVID, I decided that I had really made a mistake. I miss them. I always thought about them, a couple times a year. I actually ran into a gal here in Texas who had gone to our college and hadn't seen her in years, just ran into her randomly at an event downtown. And the first thing she asked me is, how are they doing? I'm sure you guys stayed in touch. You seem like such great friends. And I'll admit, I was a little embarrassed to say that, no, we hadn't talked to each other at that point. At that point, it had been well over 20 years. Maybe closer to 30. And that really bugged me. That whole conversation with that woman bothered me because I realized that I let something incredibly positive go. So fast forward, I reach out on Facebook. It was right before COVID. I reach out, I send them both a message. Now, we weren't friends on social media, so they had to know to go to that special place to find the messages from people you're not friends with. Well, neither of them is tech savvy. I am not either. So for months, I did not hear back from them. And I did tell myself when I pushed that button that what was the worst thing that could happen? I didn't hear anything back, or I just got a one-liner, hey, nice to hear from you, hope you're doing okay. Dead silence. It could have gone a lot of ways. But what I told myself is that I was going to reach out because it was what I wanted and needed to do, and I was going to accept whatever happened. I was not going to stalk them to find out where they were and what they were doing. But I prepared myself that it might not turn out the way that I wanted it to turn out. And that's my message to you today, is that if there is someone on your mind, someone you think about from time to time, maybe you go to a particular restaurant, you think of them, or a park, or something happens in your life, someone mentions an event and you remember, that person, why not reach out? Even if the friendship didn't end on the best of terms, time corrects and fixes so many issues. And sometimes what we're going through in our life at any given time, it colors, right? It colors how we see things. It colors how things affect us. I tend to be a little more emotional about things if I'm not at my best. So look back on your life and say, what was going on with me that maybe I contributed to that friendship not working out, not standing the test of time. We tend to look at things a lot differently, especially as the years tick by and we become a lot more mature and have had a lot more life experiences. So one day out of the clear blue sky, months had gone by. I think I had forgotten about anticipating hearing. I stopped checking my messages. I was like, oh well, what I hoped wouldn't happen, happened, but it happened. And then I got a message. Well, that turned into Zoom calls. COVID had just started, which was probably a positive thing for our friendship because we had a lot of time to get to know each other again. I was using Zoom for my company, so we set up Zoom calls. We laughed till we cried, trying to convince ourselves that we hadn't aged a bit. Oh, you look exactly the same. And after a couple of Zoom calls and catching up and finding out that our lives had really had so many similarities along the way, we started to talk about why we drifted apart. And, there had been a couple of little disappointing things that had happened here and there. And we talked about it not because there was any closure needed. It was just friends finding their way back to each other and sharing our disappointment that we didn't prioritize the friendships, that we let months turn into years. And we all did it. We all took responsibility. We all felt the same way, that we had lost something very important. So fast forward to last weekend. So it's been now since 2019 that we are in each other's lives. We've had a couple of girl trips and nothing fancy. We had one road trip where we met up with our husbands, and we have rebuilt that sense of trust and that desire you have to be a good friend, to be there for someone else. And we've gone through, some tough times as friends who, are just dealing with life issues that come up along the way. So I was at her daughter's wedding this last weekend, back in, 1985 maybe. I was a bridesmaid. Well, both the roommates, we were her bridesmaids when she got married. And then when I got married, she couldn't come to I had a very small wedding in Texas. She couldn't come to my wedding because she was expecting her first baby any day. And this was the wedding of that little girl, that baby, all grown up. And it was wonderful to be together with my two roommates again and with our spouses and share something very special. So if you have someone who you think about from time to time, maybe someone that you regret losing track of, or someone who you just allowed to disappear from your life because you didn't have the time, you didn't have the energy, you didn't have the bandwidth to keep the friendship going for whatever reason, it's time to reach out, especially if it's someone that you continue to think about. Social media makes it so easy, dropping a letter in the mail and just saying, hey, I've been thinking about you. I'd love to reconnect, or I'd at least like to know what you're up to, how you're doing. I want you to know that I think about you from time to time and all of the fun times that we share together. As we get older, it's a time of self-reflection. And part of that self-reflection is thinking about the things that we wish we had done a little bit differently. Well, I hope that gives you something to think about. I appreciate you stopping by the channel and look forward to talking to you again real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.